Hi everyone! So today I'm going to introduce the class to communication. Now many of you may have already taken some kind of communication class in the past, public speaking, a communication class in particular. I'm trying to think of like public relations. So this may be an overview for those of you or a review for some of you. But I do want to begin just kind of laying down some information about what communication is and also how it differs from business communication and what we need to know moving forward into the semester. So communication is really a basic drive towards meaning. We all communicate. We all communicate in many different ways and many different modes. And it's something that has been a part of human experience for millennia. Um, it is a common desire to share meaning with one another. And I specifically want to touch on this historical aspect of communication. Our ability to communicate, specifically visually, actually arose at the same time, evolutionarily speaking, that our ability to critically think. So even our ability to understand meaning or understand that another person has a concept of a mind, communication evolves alongside that. So it's really a way for us to understand others. It's also a way for us to understand ourselves. There's something called self-talking, where you're communicating with yourself, and that dialogue with yourself actually allows you to solidify meaning. But all communication, no matter what, is a problem-solving activity. And sometimes this is explicit in the case of writing. Sometimes this is implicit, where we're all doing this kind of telepathically, where we're communicating on a psychic level in some ways, where we're understanding what the situation is at that moment. We're understanding possible strategies that we can take, and then the best strategy out of those possible strategies, and then also the best way to design a message and the best way to deliver a message. So in any communication situation, you have three major elements. You have the speaker, you have the audience, and you have the subject. You have yourself talking, you're talking to somebody, and you're talking to somebody about something. And these can have different words. There's different communication models that call these things different words. But here are a few of those. The source is the speaker. The receiver is the audience. You have the context and the environment, the occasion, which is the stuff going on around the actual person talking to another person. You also have the channel or the medium. So this is how you actually communicate, either voice or writing or social media, email, that kind of thing. And then you also have feedback, which is a kind of interference, and you see that word there too. But it's something that's telling you, the source, that you need to adjust your meaning in some way, shape, or form. Interference is a little bit more negative of a connotation, where it's affecting how you can actually communicate. So I want to touch on two specific theoretical models of communication, kind of getting a little bit more abstract. But you have a transactional model and a constructivist model. Now, the difference between these two is there's not a lot of difference, honestly. You can see that there's a receiver source. You can see that there's interaction happening between them. In a transactional model, though, the focus is on everything. It's on all of the pieces that you see there: the message, the channel, the feedback, the interference, context, environment. It's all of those pieces in movement, in transaction. The constructivist model, the focus is actually not on any given piece, but on the negotiated meaning that the two receiver/sources work together to create. So an example of the constructivist model is, say you say a word that I don't understand. Maybe you're asking me, hey, can you get a Coke? And you are from Atlanta, Georgia, where to say that a person wants a Coke is to say that a person wants a soda. And so there's a kind of, even though it's a transaction, it is a construction of that word Coke to mean a given thing, to mean either that, yes, I actually want a Coke, or no, I want a specific kind of soda, and that soda is orange soda or Dr. Pepper or whatever. So the difference between these two is the focus. The constructivist model focuses on the meaning that is constructed. The transactional model focuses on the kind of elements that are in flux. So what does language have to do with all of this? Well, language is how we communicate, and language can happen in many different modes. But in general, it's a codified system in which we are communicating meaning. So this can happen in systems of symbols, words themselves, gestures, pictures. Language is also, it only has meaning if speakers and audiences give it meaning. What that really means is that language is abstract. A word doesn't actually mean anything. It's the cultural context in which that has imbued that word with meaning. So it's speakers and audiences that have to give this kind of arbitrary code or symbol meaning. In that, language is always changing. It is always bound by the context in which it has been given meaning. Again, it's an abstract concept applied to a concrete reality. So as a culture, we have decided to say that soda, the word soda, means a specific concrete thing. But again, those words are ever changing and bound by context. Soda means one thing in one area. Pop means another, or means the same thing in another area. And then we have even regional differences like Coke. Language also organizes and classifies what we know to be true. So a very common example of this is the word blue has many, many more meanings in Russian, for example, than it does in English. English, there's only a certain number of shades that blue can be attributed to. So our word for blue organizes and classifies and binds what we can know to be blue. And then also language has denotations, which are dictionary definitions, but they also have connotations, so they can mean slightly different things in slightly different situations. And really, this is all to say that language is living. It breathes meaning into our shared understandings of the world and allows us to actually move forward with one another on action, on understanding. So business communication, this is something a little bit different. The same kinds of models can be used to apply to business communication, but the difference is in 1, who you represent, 2, the stakes, 3, the genres, and then also the values that you represent and the values that you communicate can be different. Who you represent when you're just talking to a friend, you're only representing yourself. So when you say something stupid, you only represent yourself in that context. In a business communication context, when you say something stupid, you represent a company. You are a piece of a company, not an individual or a person. And so that's a very big difference between communication at large and business communication in specific. The stakes, in fact, I want to go over the stakes in a second, but the genres are different, and then the values can be different. You can have the same values if you're just a regular person who values, conciseness, clarity. But these values can be different in different contexts. You may be in a situation where clarity doesn't get you much, but in business communication, it does. So some of the genres that you're going to see in a business context, you probably have already seen these already. Some of these you'll be writing for me. Many of these you'll be writing for me. Emails, memos, or executive summaries, letters, business proposals, reports, either informational or actual like argumentative reports, resumes, these are job materials, sales messaging, social media campaigns, press releases, especially if you work in nonprofit or in government, presentations, and a lot of conference meetings. So that's even its own genre of oral communication. So this has a lot to do with the actual stakes of business communication. What happens when we make a mistake? And there's a kind of play on words there. Well, we can have damaged relationships. We can lose productivity. We can be inefficient, and in our inefficiency cause more reworking to have to be done. More revising takes more time. We can cause conflict. We can miss opportunities. We can create scheduling delays. We can have what's known in industry as scope creep or leap, and what's known in nonprofit as mission creep or leap. What this happens is if we're not getting our what this is if we're not getting our communication exactly right, our focus and our purpose can slightly creep to a completely different purpose, and then sometimes it can completely leap in large bounds away from what we're being paid to do. We can waste resources, and we can cause there to be unclear and therefore unmet requirements. So some of the common mistakes in business communication, specifically in language, that can cause these things to happen. You can have general terms for things that don't mean anything and that confuse people. So this is cliches, slang, and then jargon. And if you're speaking to someone out of context, if you're using jargon out of a specific industrial context, then you might have issues. Euphemisms are also another kind of cultural change of language that can cause communication, miscommunication. Double speak, so not being completely clear with your expectations, with what you're trying to say. You can confuse people that way. And then as far as the kind of interpersonal or client relationships, using sexist or racist language, not being culturally appropriate for the given context, this has and will and can cause serious issues with how a business or an organization does their work. So I want to end this conversation about communication actually talking about something that in a lot of ways is a justification for why this class exists. And that is that when you look at a job application, business qualifications are almost always communication skills. So I've given you a few common phrases that you'll find on a job description. Strong verbal and written communication skills. Very clear there that that is a communication related skill. Ability to work collaboratively. This is kind of indicating that you're able to communicate with other people. You're able to respect other people in the language that you use. Ability to take initiative, as well as strong analytical skills. These are both signaling research skills. Being able to go ahead and take initiative and do the kind of thought work that you have to have communication skills to be able to do. And then, while not exactly communication oriented, hardworking. It requires communication. It requires someone to know the right answers or know the right questions to ask, to communicate to the right people in the right situations. Even though that writing and that kind of thinking work is not tangible, it's still a hard working, it indicates hard work. And I just want to leave you with this quote from Bob Carey, who is a person at the New School University. He headed up a national commission on writing for America's family schools and colleges. So this was looking at what effect does communication skills have on the workforce. And he writes, writing is both a marker of high skill, high wage, professional work, and a gatekeeper with clear equity implications. So what that means is if you do not have communication skills, you do not have business qualifications. So it's incredibly important. And even if you see that those words high skill, high wage, professional work, many of you will be thinking over the semester about why you want to do the work you do. If you want to have a high skilled job, if you want to be constantly, challenged and learn all the time, you have to have writing skills and communication skills. If you want to make a lot of money, you have to have writing and communication skills. So these gatekeeping mechanisms are really important for us to think about as we move through the semester. Thank you for listening, and you guys have a great day.